What's the good word, everybody? It's your boy DKB here. Let's talk the New York Jets round one draft strategy. I think in most of our eyes, assuming the top three wide receivers go, and depending on how you feel about Brock Bowers and maybe a tackle or two leaving, plenty of people are comfortable trading down. But staying at number 10 or trading up is definitely still on the table. And so I think if you want to kind of prioritize draft needs, or at least what we ideally view we're going to target, right? Offensive line, wide receiver, or weapons in general have been the focal point of this entire offseason for the New York Jets. You think about revamping that entire offensive line, bringing in Mike Williams to secure a Robin to Garrett Wilson's Batman, but we're not done. We want to fully infuse this offense and give it every possible reason to exceed expectations, right? I think that's something that's going to be easier said than done. Obviously, we brought in plenty of talents in previous seasons that have gone off the rails, but we have a real chance here to set the bar for what the future of the New York Jets offense can look like. And so, in no particular, or actually, if I had to go and put something in stone, I would say you're looking at the New York Jets based on all the latest news, the rumors we've been keeping up on. It's wide receiver, it's tight end, and then it's offensive line. And I would say that because of this. When you want to look at wide receivers, at number 10, it feels like the most expected player to fall to us, if it's going to happen, is Rome Odunze, right? Malik Neighbors offers the most explosive athletic ability and traits in this draft class. And then Marvin Harrison is essentially elite in everything he's doing, right? He's not going to bring that explosive element that Malik Neighbors has, but he's going to give you high tier play in a variety of ways. And then you have Rome Odunze, who lacks as much polish or the explosion as you see from a lot of these other guys, but there's always a place in the somebody searching for a number one wide receiver, for a guy that can turn 50-50 balls into those 70-30 situations where he's generally coming down with those. There's a reason a lot of people have been comparing him in a manner to Larry Fitzgerald, or you think about DeAndre Hopkins because of the hands, deceptive enough speed, and his route running may not be the most polished in this draft class, but I think without a doubt he'll still catch a lot of people off guard that think he's just going to go out there and move the chains consistently as a top target. All of those guys would be amazing to have on this roster, right? But you've seen the trade-up and consistent trade-up scenarios where the New York Jets are getting aggressive to move up and getting Marvin Harrison, or they're getting aggressive to move up and select the Malik Neighbors. Not necessarily the same situation with a Rome Odunze, but that's why I think wide receiver is at the top of the list. It seems like the Jets are dead set on making sure Aaron Rodgers has a full elite arsenal at his disposal. Then you get to tight end. Tight end, we haven't had rumors of trading up with Brock Bowers, right? If anything, we've had situations where it'll allow us to trade down. When you want to think about the Colts seemingly having a very strong interest in Brock Bowers, and so that would make sense. But we also did have the recent rumors that mentioned the New York Jets will essentially, leave the decision of which way they want to lean, wide receiver, depending on who's available, tight end, to Aaron Rodgers. And if he wants a Brock Bowers, he's going to get a Brock Bowers according to that rumor. But for all of us that do say, hey, we don't love Bowers at 10, it's not from a talent standpoint. A lot of us, or in my opinion anyways, on a few various chats that I've had, I see it from the standpoint that a lot of us feel like we won't optimize Brock Bowers to what he can be, right? This isn't a situation where you're necessarily overrating him at 10. It's just taking a look at the Jets depth chart. You're not easily replacing a Conklin or Jeremy Rucker with Brock Bowers unless he truly is generational, and he may be. He's definitely been the best, unanimously the best college tight end that we've seen in a handful of years here. But he does have more of a specialized role since he doesn't bring traditional tight end elements to your passing attack. But if anybody can exploit what he can be as a mismatch elite H-back or split wide receiver, if you will, hybrid, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, right? He'll find a way to get him on the field, have those packages, and he'll most likely be the main target on a lot of those plays that you see from him. So I don't love it the most from a fit perspective, but I do think you still can get some borderline elite production out of a guy like Brock Bowers with the smarts that you have of Aaron Rodgers and what he would want to see get done with that. And if we truly do end up going the Brock Bowers route, it's going to have Aaron Rodgers' blessing. And, at that point, we're all going to be praying that he exceeds expectations anyways. And then finally, I would say offensive line, right, as the third need that the New York Jets are looking at. It almost feels like the New York Jets aren't necessarily putting this on the back burner, but they would rather potentially take advantage of picking up a tackle in round 3, since the general perception is that the New York Jets have a capable starting 5, right? Obviously, talent isn't a question. Injury is. Can we have that same starting 5 unit play together the entire season? I think it's unlikely, but the Jets can probably get away with saying, hey, we have a round 3 tackle that we're bringing in. He has all the traits that we love. However, he's not a day 1 ready starter, right? He's not a Joe Alt. He's not a Olu Fashanu, which, Joe Alt generally seemed like the best overall tackle in this draft class. Olu Fashanu, depending on who you're speaking to, is widely regarded as the best pass blocking tackle and probably has the highest ceiling if he can raise his run ability. And then you still have Talisa Fuaga, who we had early indications on that Joe Douglas really, really loves. People like the J.C. Latham to a better version of Mekhi Becton comparisons. And then you have the late riser in Troy Fautanu and everything that he brings between his versatility and day 1 ready skill set as well. And also kind of his underrated athletic ability and physical measurables, where a lot of people thought he wouldn't have the arm length to play tackle. In fact, he has better arm length than a Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu, and you don't necessarily have strength concerns like you do with the Fashanu, etc. But it seems like the Jets are relatively okay with missing out on a lot of these prime tackles because they're, to be honest, unless something catastrophic happens during the offseason or early in the offseason, which, knock on wood, tackle or not, we would hate to see happen, you're not expecting those guys to play a ton, right? I've said this pretty consistently, but if you can get, let's say, 13 games in the regular season out of a Tyron Smith, then you feel good about the rookie coming in, no matter who it is, and playing those remaining 4 games. And then, Tyron Smith coming back for the playoffs. You don't really have to toss that first round pick into the fire so early, which would be something that we're unaccustomed to, right? Generally, every time we're drafting in round 1, no matter if it's a mid, late, early round pick, those are guys we're expecting to see the field right away almost 100% of the time. So this would be a departure from that mentality, and maybe that's something that Joe Douglas and Brass are embracing. I am personally still from the standpoint that while it would be great to see a Marvin on, the field lining up with Garrett and Mike, Roma Dunze, Malik Neighbors, especially for the future, I'm still a huge proponent of Garrett Wilson having a guy that's, elite or borderline elite paired with him to finish out his rookie contract. I would hate to go through another season where if we ultimately don't get to the Super Bowl or we somehow catastrophically miss the playoffs, I don't want the reason to be our offensive line failed us once again, right? Injuries racked up, or players didn't live up to, their general standard, right? We brought in a ton of Hall of Famers over the course of the last 2 decades. And almost all of them essentially have ran away with the free bag, right? There are those that have been able to still capture some of those, twilight sparks, if you will. But largely, we've been played by the Tremaine Johnsons of the world, for example. So I would personally just love to know that you have confidence in your starting 5 offensive line members moving forward. But to be honest, this is a draft that I will continue to say, at least as far as round 1 goes, it feels really hard for the Jets to make a bad pick here right now. Maybe a guy wouldn't pan out or something along those lines, but on paper, whether you target a wide receiver, whether you target Brock Bowers, whether you target whatever your preferred offensive tackle that's still on the board is, it's really hard to miss unless we do something like drafting a Marius Mims or, a Tyler Guyton, for example, who we expect to be there in like the mid to later section as a reach. Unless you go with a guy like a Brian Thomas Jr., for example, if you do have a Rome Odunze on the board, unless you... Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't know any other situation other than selecting the defensive player. And no matter who it is, I think we would go absolutely nuts over. So nonetheless, wide receiver, tight end, O-line, I think that's the way that we should look at things here. Let me know what you guys think, though, and I'll catch you again. Peace.